This project is an honest and in-depth perspective of and from former students at Milt and Hershey School. We call ourselves Milts.
An organic, open discussion of life before, during, and after attending MHS.
So welcome everybody to Milt Talk Podcast. Thanks for joining us. This is a podcast we're doing about former students, teachers, alumni, and staff that all had experiences in Milt and Hershey School over the years. And today we have the lovely Miss Deesha Dyer joining us.
That's good.
Dee, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate you taking time out. Like I said, we're just gonna get right into it. So for all the people out there that don't know you, can you tell them what year you graduated?
Sure, I graduated barely in 1995.
You don't believe me with the barely.
I know what that's about.
It was a little struggle, but I made it.
Yeah, and so when did you go to Hershey? When did you go to the Mill?
I went to the Mill in fifth grade, so it was 1988.
Wow. And was your brother there already? Because you have a brother, Isaac, who's in class of
93.
93.
Yeah, so my brother Isaac was class of 93, and he was 2 years ahead of me, and we went together. But my cousin Courtney, who graduated with y'all, he was already there. He had been there for several years. That's how we knew about the school. And then my brother and I went when I was in fifth grade. He was in seventh grade.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, and that's how I met you. You know, Courtney, like you said, was in our class.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's always like, yo, this is my little brother and my little cousin or whatever.
Yeah, right.
I remember you being super young and meeting you. And we stayed tight over the years.
Definitely, most definitely.
And so you're originally from Philadelphia, is that right?
Originally from Philadelphia, yes.
Okay. And when you graduated from the Milt, you wound up coming back to Philadelphia and going to community college?
No. So I graduated from the Milt in 1995, and I went to college in Cincinnati. So I went to University of Cincinnati for about a semester or two before I left there and stayed in Ohio working for a couple of years. Then I moved back to Philly in 2001. And then that's when I came back to Philadelphia.
Okay. I didn't realize that. I know you were you were writing for one of the newspapers. Is that correct?
Right. Yeah. So I wrote for the Philadelphia City paper. I wrote about hip hop, basically the culture. And so when everybody was just like, you know, Jack Boogie, I was like, Jackie Stroman, that's my homie. And so I was like, and Werner, like that's my homies. Like I don't know them by the scene. I knew them before. So yes, I wrote about hip hop in Philadelphia and really the culture and the scene in Philly.
Yeah, it's funny when you bust out the government name like that. That's how I know when somebody knows me from what era, you know?
Right.
Somebody put something on Facebook the other day saying Jackie, and somebody who didn't know me from back in the day was like, he called you Jackie. I'm like, yeah, that's my name. That's you know me, like, you know what I mean? But yeah, I remember you were writing and you were on the party scene too. You knew all the same people that I knew, and the music scene was phenomenal at the time.
Yeah, it was. It was so great, and I did a lot of community work in the hip hop community as well, with HIV/AIDS and education and safe sex stuff. So I did a lot of that on the scene as well. Yeah.
You took care of a lot of Milts with the connection down at the White House. I know we came down and were fortunate enough to get a tour, and the same day I think Mr. Galloway came.
Yeah.
We missed each other, but how many Milts came down to visit you while you were there?
A lot. You know, I think that's one of the privileges of working at the White House, was that I had the access to be able to get people in who never knew how to get into the White House or even like work there or work in government, period. So whenever a Milt would call me up, I would definitely make it happen. I mean, we had the Milt and Hershey School Choir sing at a holiday party. So that was really great. We surprised them with meeting the president and first lady, and the Gertz came down. We've had student homes come down. So, I mean, I always tried to make it happen the best I could. I couldn't do always everybody seeing Barack and Michelle Obama, but I would do, like, when y'all came, I think Zoe saw the dogs and, like, you know, I think she loved dogs and stuff like that. So I think that we at least try to get Bo and Sonny out, you know, once in a while. But I think that people came for different events, and it was wonderful to always see family. You know, Mr. Webster came, and it was always good to see family. So yeah.
And speaking of Mr. Webster, I think it was amazing that you read that letter that you had Mr. Obama read. You read the letter that he wrote for Webb, which is that's a normal thing, and I don't know that people really get that. Can you talk about that letter and that process?
Sure. So when somebody passes away, you know, the president, when we were in office, he'd always get requests for condolence letters. And, you know, he's out of office now, obviously, but, you know, I just, you know, Webb, you know, first of all, admired him so much. And, you know, the president and the first lady both admire education and teachers so much, and like mentors and counselors. So I saw it as a natural. So when I asked about it to the president's staff, they got it done right away. I mean, it was, and I asked for it in time to give it to Mrs. Webster at the funeral, which is usually those letters take like 2 to 3 weeks. And I was like, you know, if we could get it, even just to get a copy, I can have on my phone, I could show her, then she can get the real one later. And they left no hesitation with him getting it done, him signing it. And then we sent Miss Webster the original letter, and then I read a copy. So when I saw her the day of Webb's funeral, she was like, I didn't even open the envelope yet. I'm scared to open it. You know, she didn't want to, because she wanted fingerprints on it, you know.
Yeah.
I said, well, you know, you do what you want, but you can leave an envelope, whatever you feel like, and it's fine. Here's a copy of, you know, what it looks like or whatever. But we didn't tell her either, because I didn't want to tell her and I couldn't come through with it. You know, the president was actually on vacation. And so I didn't know he'd be able to get it done. And so that meant a lot. And I mean, and even that she wanted me to read it, I was good with anybody reading it, you know, and she asked me to read it, which was an honor, because he came down to see, you know, to visit when I was there. And he just had the, you know, Webb taking pictures everywhere of everything. So, you know, so that's what he was doing. So it was really special.
So let's talk about the Obamas. I know you've told this story a million times. You went down as an intern to help out and wound up getting a little bit closer to them to the point where they really appreciated and needed you around. Can you tell us about them? Can you tell us about your relationship with them?
Yeah. And sorry, y'all hear sirens. You know, I'm in New York. It's a siren, unfortunately.
That's all right. It's that time.
So the Obamas, like they are amazing people. I think that people, when you see them on TV, that's exactly how they are in person. They're just real chill, which in a way is great, because, you know, you want somebody real, but then sometimes you forget that the president, first lady, and I have to be like, don't say that, don't talk about this, or, you know, don't be talking like they're your friends, you know, they're your bosses. And so I always try to remember that they were my bosses. And, you know, I interned for them in 2009. And I just wanted to intern, you know, at the White House for Barack Obama. I didn't think that it was going to turn into a full-time thing for 8 years. I didn't plan on it. I was good with just interning. I was there for 3 months. That's all I need. Like, that was wonderful. And then they hired me back in 2010 full-time. And then I just kept getting promoted. And from there, my last promotion was a senior role. And I think that, you know, what people don't realize is that, you know, the role that I ended in was like hospitality and parties and events and, like, you know, music. And that's kind of where I started, you know, in my life. So I think that, you know, I always tell my students, you know, when you think that what you're doing doesn't matter, you don't realize now how it's going to affect you, you know, or your career down the line. I never thought that, like, you know, my connection to, like, you know, Philly would get like Questlove there, or like D Nice came and Jazzy Jeff came to DJ. Like, you know, some of my friends, I got to DJ there. So I think that, like, stuff like that, I never thought I'd be able to do at the White House. But so it all came full circle, and they were wonderful, and they trusted me. Like, when I was like, you know, Jazzy Jeff's gonna come, and, you know, Static Ill Vibe's gonna come, they're just like, okay.
and it turned out good. I mean, I think it's a testament, because I know that we were in contact when you were down there, and it was getting to, even though it was a very fantastic job and it was flattering to have it, you know, you need money to live, and you were hitting the wall there. And as much as you appreciated that job and it was amazing, you needed to make a move for yourself. And I think it's a testament to you that they created that position, Social Secretary of the United States. Is that correct?
Yeah, Social Secretary. Yeah, it goes all the way back. I mean, you know, the Social Secretary, like our oldest Social Secretary, I believe living in Lyndon B. Johnson's, that's able. So it goes far back. I think that the role itself, though, is a very creme de la creme role of somebody who knows, like, what side the forks go on. And, like, we learned that the Milt is not the same. So I was like, I got it. And I was like, oh, wait, no, the fork don't go there. Like, I had to learn all that again. And so, you know, I think it was, you know, they trusted me to do that role, and they trusted me when I didn't trust myself. And so that really, you know, solidified, you know, that I could do anything. And I started believing in myself more.
Got it. And so what are you working on now? Can you I know I know
Woo!
what you're into, but let's explain it to the people as far as work is concerned and then what you're doing to give back to the community.
Right. They all blend together, I feel like. Usually the community side, which doesn't provide income. But I was getting most of my income through speaking. And so I would public speak and get paid to do that. And I was fine living like that. And then obviously coronavirus hit. And so, all of my income, thankfully I had a really bountiful Black History Month. And so I got a lot of money there speaking, but, Women's History Month is in March. And all my gigs got canceled. So that was like $15,000 to $20,000 in lost income. And so I, am blessed enough to be able to have health insurance to my former employer and have money saved up. So I just was like, what is happening? How can I, figure out getting a job or writing a book or something? And so I decided to start my own consulting firm, social impact firm. And so I'm working with corporations and companies to be able to do mindful giving. Like, don't just give blindly to a community, like get the community
they do something
involved.
good with it.
And I think that a lot of these people they have great hearts and they have big wallets, but they just give blindly. And they're just like, oh, we're just gonna give $1 million. And you're like, do you know where it's going to? Did you consult the community and what they needed? And so a lot of that, especially in response to coronavirus. And I've been working with community in the Bronx. And so the Bronx is the poorest district in the nation. And so they have been hit hard. They were already hit hard. We like to say they had the pandemic of poverty before they had coronavirus. And so I've been working with them on a volunteer basis, really just getting their operations up and running for their relief, rapid relief, rent control and rent and and food security and those kind of things. So that, and then I'm launching a program. I do, Jackie, I do a million things. And then I'm launching a program for African-American graduating seniors from college who are graduating with political science and international relations and government affairs to pair them up with an Obama Black appointee who worked in the administration. Because right now they're graduating in a world where the political system's jacked up, the job system's jacked up, intern system's jacked up. And so I want to be able to provide them some guidance. So those are like the touch points. And then there's a book in there somewhere. But
wait, and then what's funny to me is you got so much stuff going on. You done forgot. Can you tell the world about beGirl?
Yes. Yes.
Come on now, give it to them now. Don't...
So beGirl World, which we're waiting to recruit Zoe, by the way, but beGirl World.
He's ready.
And beGirl World is a program that my partner, our business partner Marcel and I started in 2014, and really it encourages and elevates young Black girls to travel and to be global citizens. I noticed especially that when I would travel overseas with the president, there wouldn't be a lot of Black people working in the embassies representing the United States. And so I was like, well, why not? And I started looking at the study abroad numbers, and only 7% of study abroad are Black students. And so to me, I said, well, how can we change that? So, Black students know that they're able to travel the world, or they can go work in another country. And so we started beGirl World. It's in Philadelphia, and it is with freshmen and sophomores in high school. And we take them on a 2-year, every month we do stuff like different foods, different dances, different culture. We visit domestic cities, in the US, and then we take them overseas. And so we took them to London and Paris 4 years ago. And then we just did London and Madrid this past year. Amazing. And we also provide scholarships for Black women in college who are studying abroad. And so that's part of the thing is the financing, right? Like, I think a lot of Black students, a lot of marginalized students, don't feel like they have the money to afford study abroad. And so even though our scholarship is small, we provide it to a girl from Philly and then a girl from anywhere in the US. So that's beGirl World.
That's amazing. I barely got time to brush my teeth and
change your
all that stuff makes me feel lazy. But that's why we love you, Deesha. You know what I mean? You're carrying that torch.
Yeah.
Sure.
I'm gonna let Warner and Agoe and Jess jump in. I know they wanted to ask you some questions as well.
What up, Deesh? Hey, so Deesh, you mentioned your contributions to volunteering and all that. Like, where did that stem from?
That's a great question, Warner, actually. And how are you? How you doing?
I'm good. How you doing?
Good. Okay, so I think that for me, being at Milt and Hershey, I mean, community is ingrained, I think, in our blood. I don't think, we had no choice but to live together with these random people. You know what I mean? It was just like, who are you? Even if I don't like you, I still got to stay with you. Like, you still in my student home, And so I think that the appreciation for difference and the appreciation for the different situations that people come from, came from Hershey, right? My parents were very involved in my dad especially was very involved in a lot of, Black radical stuff. Like I would hear stuff from him, but once I got to Milton Hershey, I was like, this is a community, and we started just like gelling so much there that to me, I always wanted to search for that everywhere I went. And so, I always felt very fortunate that although I came from unfortunate circumstances, sometimes I was very more fortunate than other people. And for me, being able to give back and to give to others in a meaningful way was like my contribution to the world, because I don't have a lot of money, right? So I can't be like, here's money to give to you to help. Here's money. But I'm like, but I can give my time. And I'm really passionate about these things. The root of it really also was when, and this goes way back, but, my root of really volunteering came with HIV AIDS. And when HIV AIDS came around, and Ryan White, if you remember, was this boy who got AIDS through a blood transfusion, and nobody wanted to be his friend. I was like, I remember saying to my house mother, like, I want to be his friend. Like, can I move with him? She's like, no, you can't do that. And so I started searching out families who had children who had HIV AIDS or they were affected. So I was like, I feel so bad they don't have any friends. Like, this is, this isn't wrong. And then it just kind of continued from there, and volunteering for me and giving back to the community. It's like, I don't have any children, and it's like, that's what I do. Those are my babies. And part of it is because like, that's what I feel at home. You know what I mean? Like after the White House, I would go to the homeless shelter and like cook food and play checkers. I felt more comfortable there than I did at the White House. I just, and I never told anybody what I did. When I volunteered, they never knew I worked at the White House. So a big article came out about me working there, so yeah. So they were just like, what? And I was like, yeah, I didn't want to, so yeah.
So it shows that you're a genuine person too. The fact that you didn't go over there with a whole bunch of clout and a whole bunch of status and all that. Like, look what I'm doing. Hey, let me bring the newspapers over so they can see what I'm doing.
Yeah, no, I never did that.
It was somebody like, yo, what you doing? You know what I mean?
Well, it was important for me too, because I wanted to relate with them. I didn't want them to see me. Like if you open up like a magazine and you see me in there, like you're going to be an automatic assumption is I'm not like a normal person who's been through things, right? Unless I talk about them. So I wanted them to see me for who I was, to say like, oh, and she accomplished X, Y, Z. Like I could do that too. They can't relate to the person in the magazine. They can relate to the person in front of them. And so that's why it's important to me to always stay connected to the community. So yeah.
Well, see, I will say the same thing, because Deesh, you've been, since I met you at the Milt, and since you've done all these big things, like you're still my home girl. You know what I mean? Like it's still love when I see you. Hugs from all around, and hey, how you doing? How's your pop doing? Everything, how your family doing? And I love that you stay grounded. I really do appreciate that. I'll go forever if y'all don't chime in. So
I got something like so. So, Deesha, I'm a Goey, by the way. I don't know if you know me or not.
I don't think so. Sorry, I got to fix my little scarf here. Well,
right. Okay. So, it's funny, you mentioned so many things that I've connected with. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that Warner was saying is how you manage to stay grounded. Mm-hmm. And I can hear that just in how you communicate with the guys. And so I really appreciate that. So, I wanted to know, because you said, like, you were living with random people being in the Milt, because we don't really get a choice of who we stay with, not even your roommate for the most part. So my thing is, do you feel like that kind of was able to help you, associating with different people while working in the different fields that you've been able to work in over time?
Right. That's a great question. And I can't believe that we haven't met in person, but hopefully we will someday. So thanks for having me. But that's a good question. I definitely do. Because I feel like, I didn't know, when I was at home in Philadelphia, like I knew who I knew my community. But then when you're thrown into a situation with different people, you have to adjust. And I think that the thing about it was back then we were all just having fun. We were kids and it was good to be, but now I see the value. Now that I'm older, I could see it. Back then I was just like, oh, cool. My best friend's from the country in Nepal. Like, I didn't really think it was I was just like, that's really cool. Now that I'm older, like I remember her getting dressed in her sari. I remember her parents bringing her food. Like you see, like it means so much. And I feel like as I've gone on in my careers, it's definitely come to terms, because there is almost, no one that I can't deal with. There's people I choose not to deal with, and for my own mental health, because at the end of the day, I'm still from Philadelphia. But I think that, there's no one I can't deal with. And so I think that the Milt gets a lot of credit for that, because it taught us, even in indifference, you could just walk away. Like, I'm not saying I'm not in the person who's like, you got to agree with everybody, or I have to find common ground with you. I really don't. But I can choose to just walk away. And I think that I had really great house parents in the Latin office and media division who just encouraged that of us, saying like, hey, if you can't talk it out, just walk away. Like, there isn't like, you have to work it out. It was like, you know what, so I feel like I've taken that lesson throughout my entire career.
That's what's up.
That's
So,
great.
so while you were at the Milt, like, so who was your squad? Who was your team? Like just name some people. I like to get some, like, when you got to school, who did you link up with?
Yeah, so the best friend who I still have to this day is Angelica Ramirez, graduated in 1995 with me. Her daughter is like my daughter, so we're still super close. There's Kiwana Wilson, there's Tori King, there was Paul Gross and Louis Karama, who passed away, Jason Unger, who passed away. There was, who else? Ansu Seresta. Like, it was a good crew. Like, I had friends from all over, like Gus Lassig out in Rome. Like, I had friends from all over, but I think that was basically my crew. But then my older brother, because of my older brother, my crew was also like, Kyle Brown and Doug Oliver and Darren Russell and like the Boone brothers. So like, and then my cousin Courtney, it was like Jackie and Warner. Like, so it was just all over. So yeah.
So the next thing I got is, do you have any memories like of people that got out that you wish wouldn't have got out, that you was kind of like you were friends with and you wish they wouldn't have left because they had an impact on your friendship? Like, I had a few people that got out and I was just like struggling because like one of my best friends left and I was just like, he would have stayed.
Yeah, definitely. I think that that's a good question. I'm trying to think who left. But I think one of them was Heidi Shamarati, and Heidi Shamarati Barnes now. We're still friends. And we were real close. And when she left, it was hard because that was my homegirl, like her and Tiffany Pearsall. And we all were freshmen together in Cloverdale. And I was just so close. And so I remember them leaving and being so upset, like, why they leave, whatever. But Heidi and I stayed close. And so I'm still cool with her to this day. She worked in DC, I was in DC at the same time. But I think that's hard, right? Because you form a bond with somebody when they're gone. And then I think back then we didn't have email and stuff. So it wasn't like we was texting, keeping in touch. It was like physical letters and like, what ninth graders writing a physical letter, so we didn't really,
right.
keep in touch. And then we got back in touch. And so, but I'm thankful because most of the people that left, they still landed on their feet. And so I'm thankful because I know that's not the case for all Milts. And so, but I definitely wish they would have stayed and graduated with me, especially Heidi. I wish she would have stayed. Yeah.
Yeah. I know what that feeling is like. So just my last question. I always try and ask people, so you graduate it's graduation night.
Mm-hmm.
You've been at the Milt for however long you've been there. You got there relatively young. And graduation night, it's over.
Yeah.
You leave, and I just want to know, like, because they really don't always want you back. You don't have, like, you don't say, well, if you need somewhere to go, here's your $100, here's your suitcase.
Right.
How did you feel? Did you have anything set up? How were you?
I think that we were so happy to get out of there that we were just like, it's being young. I was 17. So I thought that once I got out of there, like, I was going to have like this big life that everybody else was having, but we didn't get to have because we were at the Milt. Knowing that wasn't true at all. Like, right, I just thought the Milt was, I think when you're there, you're like, I was confined. I was all these things. And then you get out and like, go to the store and got to buy toothpaste and tampons. You're like, that's how much? You know what I mean? Like, it was a shock in my system. Like, I got to buy bra is how much? Oh, let me go to the clothing room right quick. Can I come back? Like, can I come back and get some stuff? So I think that it was a shock for me. Of course, I think like with everybody, but I also thought I was grown, right? I was dating a guy who had graduated in 1994, or a year before me. And so I was excited. I was like, we're going to be out and we're going to be free for the first time in the real world and be boyfriend, girlfriend. And so I didn't have a clue about I think, real like life in a sense of what was coming for me. And I think that was evidence when I went to college. And when I went to college and there was no house parents or there was none of that to keep me on track with stuff. And I ended up, failing out and dropping out, but like, of college. And I, credit a lot of that with me being like, I was confined for so long going to school, like I'm living free. And so that's the way that I felt when I left. Now, 2020 hindsight is just like, I was a kid, like I was a kid. And I don't regret anything that I wish I would have done things sometimes better, but it landed me at the White House. I think that had I gone through and gone to college for 4 years and gotten a career path, I don't know if I would have ever got to the White House. I think that I got there because I was a 31-year-old community college student who restarted her life. So I don't regret, but I think leaving the Milt, I definitely was like, I'm free, to turn out that I really wasn't.
So
yeah, I appreciate
to get back, because we were talking about this before, like I had that same feeling like I'm free. So I don't want to do any chores. I don't want anybody tell me anything to do. I'm not listening to anybody.
Yep.
But then when I actually reeled it back in and realized that that's what made me prosper, then I was better for it. How long was it until you went back to college, to community college? Or
I would say, one thing I would say is like, it's different for everybody. Some people like leave the Milt and they right away, or they stay on the same track, and good for them. I feel like everybody has their own different path, and really none of them are like, wrong in a sense. I think that it took me probably, I would say, probably 6 years. And I say 6 years because when I was in Cincinnati, I had to move back to Philadelphia because I got evicted out of my apartment in Cincinnati because I was carefree living. Like I had these jobs at the mall downtown, and I opened up all the credit cards. Like I could get my name in for the free t-shirts, and now nobody wants a damn t-shirt. So like, I was just like, I thought I was balling. I had these 3 jobs and these credit cards, like Discover, buying sneakers and stuff. And I was like, I'm not paying my rent. The sad part about it was like, this is really sad to say now that I live in New York paying what I pay, but my rent, cause I was on subsidized rent in Cincinnati, was $185. And I ain't pay it. Anyway,
to a fresh graduate of the Milt, that's $1 million.
Yeah, right, that's what I'm saying.
That's your whole check you got in your senior suitcase.
That's it. So I was like, so I think that it took me a whole 6 years to like my stuff being outside for real, like my stuff being outside, because also I'm on Hershey, things were always taken care of. So like if I got in trouble, like I didn't get kicked out, I got no punishment, but like it was okay at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But this was not okay, so my dad came to Philadelphia and was like, whatever can fit in the car, that's all we're taking, let's go home. Like you can't be here. And I wasn't even getting in trouble, I was just irresponsible with the money. Right. So I think that kind of woke me up to be like, ugh, let me get my little life together. So yeah.
It's funny that you say that, because I feel like that's a big common thing that a lot of us Milts talked about, was like, you didn't know how much things were. Like you were saying, like, tampons and bras. Like I was like, what? Like what now?
What? I was like, I just will wear one. Okay.
But they don't, you don't, when you go to the clothing room, you don't see a price tag on anything. You don't know how much. Like they should almost send you there with a budget and be like, here's your budget and figure it out. Yeah. But they don't do that. I mean, maybe they do now, but they didn't then. So
I agree.
That was a huge, when you left, you're like, what?
It's a shock to the system. Like,
it is.
Isn't toothpaste a basic human right? It's free. Like, why
there's tax on that toothpaste too.
Like, why is $4? Like,
right. Yeah.
Keeping it funky Warner, I was homeless. Definitely at one point, because just making all them wrong decisions. Like, light bill, they can come see me. They got to find me to come get this light bill.
Exactly.
Off on the games till the light don't come on.
Right.
Till the key don't work in the apartment. Like all those
things.
Yeah. Those life lessons to bring it home.
It does. And I even had like the when they served an eviction notice, like somebody comes to your door and gives it to you. And I got threw it to the side like, all right. And it said like, somebody's like, oh, you got 90 days. I was like, oh, it's fine.
Whatever.
And then I legit had to appear in court. Yeah. And I was like, and I had never been in court. And I was like, oh shoot. Like, and they were just like, you gotta be, and I was just like, whatever. I still ain't until I came home from work one day with everything on the sidewalk. And I was like, okay.
That reality check.
Reality check, yeah.
So I got a question for the ladies. If you because we got a lot of male perspective. I want to know, is there anything that we wouldn't know that the ladies went through at the Milt that the guys wouldn't necessarily know?
Go ahead, Deesha.
I would say, I mean, I think the obvious, right, is when you know, I just met two of y'all on here, but I'm very real about stuff. But like, I think the obvious is like our menstrual cycle. Like, I got my menstrual cycle at Camp Milton for the first time.
Oh,
Wow.
And I was just like, how do you use this stuff? How do you what do you do? And like, and it was a whole situation of like, you know, everybody else, all my friends at home, their parents taught them, their mom taught them how to do this, but my mom wasn't there. And so my friends like are teaching me how to use these, and I'm just like, what am I, does this mean I'm not a virgin anymore? Like, I was just like all over the place. So I think that like the learning my body and learning like, you know, the menstrual cycle time, that was a rough time for girls at the Milt, because like if you didn't have older people in your student home to help you, I think I had great house parents, but they also were just like my house mother was wonderful, but she wasn't coming in the bathroom to be like, this is what you do. Yeah. So I think that, you know, the older, the sisters that I had in my student home, I always credit them for helping raise me, because I had great house parents in especially junior division or intermediate division. But I feel like that for me was like the wake up call of like, if I didn't have them to help me do my hair, especially being Black, right? Like that was rough. Like it was obviously looking still rough, but like, you know, but I think that like it was rough. And so we had to adjust to all of that because, you know, they got a hairdresser like towards the end of my high school years, but like, so that's what I would say.
Wow, that's heavy. That was a good question.
Yeah.
Heavy thought too.
Yes.
And I just think about the immaturity of Milts. Like we are, especially even now when we all assemble, but especially back then, how immature. So some of the stuff we could have probably said, I mean, wow.
Yeah.
That's something that never taken into consideration, because you know somebody's having a really bad day, and here we come with our goofy stuff. You know, and wearing purple slacks and green pants, and you know, looking crazy.
So,
right. I remember when I was there, girl, you know, we couldn't even wear high top sneakers. And I tell my boyfriend, he's like, what? I'm like, yeah, there was no high top sneakers. Yeah. But remember we couldn't. You know?
Couldn't wear a lot of things. There were a lot of things.
Look, they took my Adidas top 10s that I begged my mother and them to get me because I was leaving. And they took my stuff and they said, we're gonna give him clothes. They put all my stuff back in this thing, and my aunt and my mom took it home. And they got me some fresh Z400s. some fresh Z400s. So I trust and believe, I understand. Because, you know, and every student home was created different. So you had some guys that came to school like they was fresh out of GQ, and some guys was fresh out of the clothing room, Milton Hershey School.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And that was me. I was the clothing room second best jacket wearing guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. You had to make it work though. You know what I mean?
But now I'm like,
do what you gotta do.
That London fog bag. Like, can I get that London fog bag?
Right.
That's cute, right? Like now it's cute. I'm like,
I'd lace that too, a little scarf.
My little belt on it. I'm like, where's that?
Remember how bad I used to hate wearing that damn London fog. I'm like, oh, the London fog. Honestly, now you're like, where's my London fog? I need that coat.
It's so cute. Like it's stylish. And like people paying top dollar for this.
Exactly. You see it out in the store, you're like, damn.
It costs how much?
Yes. Exactly.
Trying to hold that old one on all tight.
Yeah.
With the extra collar that you button onto it.
Yeah, exactly. The joint with
You only wore it once a week. You only wore it to church.
We wore it to church on Sunday.
It's crazy.
Honestly, I love a lot of the pictures that are coming up on Facebook where it shows all of, because we all had the same clothing, but everybody trying to fly it out a little bit different. You know what I mean? Like, I'm gonna hit mine with some cuffs real quick. I'm gonna do my laces.
I'm gonna put a belt over my shirt, like put a belt to make it a little cinch the waist. Like I'm gonna put this little polo shirt.
I'm gonna have to go back through all the pictures and be like, and pick out all the girls who had on the same shirt. It'll be like a little photo collage. Everybody had the same shirt, the same striped pink and yellow purple shirt.
So, hey, Deesh, what's some of your fondest memories of the Milt? Like when you think back, You know, was it the proms? Was it the, you know, or was it something less?
Yeah.
Question.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, keep it 100. I mean, it wasn't always nice, so there were a lot of hard times, and I don't say like I choose not to remember them, because I do remember them. I think that it doesn't serve me well to speak of them, right? And so I don't speak of them as much. But I think that for me, the good times were always, I know this sounds real corny, but like the parent weekends, like we used to practice for days for them, like days.
Best.
Remember those practices?
Oh, yeah.
That was the best.
We were so proud when our parents or guardians would come see us perform. Like, it was a big deal with my family. It was like, who can come to the parent weekend show? Did you went out to like Ponderosa or something afterwards? You know what I mean? Like, it was a huge deal. So I remember, and I love dancing and I love acting and stuff like that, what I did in high school, junior high and high school. And so for me, it was just always so fun. Like, going in Founders Hall, and like you'd rehearse in Catherine Hall for a while. You had to do it on the Founders Hall stage. Like, it was just like, and I think that I love
it was the Grammys.
It was fun.
It was
They
our
were fun.
Grammys. You right?
Yeah.
What'd you say, Warner?
That's what Jess said. She said it was our Grammys.
That's what
Exactly.
Yeah,
Right.
right.
You know?
Agree. And it was just fun. And so I remember that very fondly. And we used to always like, and then our talent shows, it's like a big deal to, rehearse for the talent show. And I will never forget, we had a dancer, LL Cool J's Around the Way Girl. And then we didn't get to do it because our basketball team got in a fight. And and I remember Mr. Galloway being like, that's like, y'all shouldn't have gotten in a fight. Like, that's it. Like, you know what I mean? And I was like, come on, you're supposed to be cool. Like, cool. And he was like, nah. So I think that, like, I remember those dances we used to make up. And I miss that carefree time when we thought life was so hard. And not to diminish what anybody had going on, because life was hard for a lot of us. And I think that being hard is relative, right? I can't say it was hard. I can't say it was hard for you, whatever. But I think that it gave me a piece of, we had a piece of like sanity and community and, camaraderie. I think that I experienced there. And again, it wasn't that saying that everything was okie dokie kumbaya, but what it's to say is like, I can choose to bring up the memories that weren't pleasant, or I can choose to bring up the ones that were, and the ones that were far outweigh the ones that weren't. And I think also, like, especially for this podcast, like, thank y'all for doing this, number one, but like, future, current students might see this, right? And I want, and it's just like, I want them to know, like, yeah, you may be experiencing whatever right now, but like, you have to pick out the parts that are going to serve you and your energy for the future. And so I think that when people talk about the bad times in the Milt, I'm like, are you talking about them to change things for the current students, or just because you want to hear yourself gripe about them, right? And so I think that for me, those memories of like just laughing and having fun, and like, the chocolate chip cookies in the tin, like, were so good. Like, those cookies. I mean, walking to Hershey Park wasn't fun. I remember that.
That was not fun.
Right. I was telling my boyfriend, we went to Hershey, Webb's funeral, he came with me, and I was like, we used to walk this. He was like, from where? And I was like,
across town.
Listen, I took him to Elmwood, where my student home was, and I said, by the time we got there and got in line for a ride, you could do one ride, and you had to turn right back around.
Right back around, like, get you some water and some lemon packets, make you a little fake lemonade.
Yes, sir.
See if you got a couple dollars for, like, a little Sour Patch Kid or something, and then
the
Chocolate World, and right back around. And then remember, we used to go to Chocolate World. I used to go on a ride for the air conditioning.
Well, we also go to be testers. I think one time.
Yes.
Be a tester. We're like, are we testing today? What are you offering?
Yes.
I told him that too. I was like, and we used to go to this ride, like air conditioning, testing, and the make out. I'm like, that's the three things. It's a ride, you'd be like, it's in the dark, and we got a little make out where it goes around the circle.
I don't know if you've been in any of the chat rooms yet, Deesha.
Oh my God.
You see, a lot of the stuff they're not the pleasant memories. They're talking about hay and straw, or when you got in trouble. And I, to your point, it's how you look at those things.
Yeah.
The things that bonded us.
Yeah, and again, and I never want to say, like, you can't, like, I'm all about, like, being 100%. If it was hell for you, it was hell for you. But I think that for me, what serves me, especially in the time that we're living in, and like, we're all in our houses right now, people dying, like, I choose to think about the good parts and relive the good parts. And it doesn't mean that that those things didn't happen. But like, right now, we're surrounded with so much. We got to grip on to what we can. You know what I mean? For me, was like being with y'all right now. It's like reminiscing, like that kind of stuff. I love, So yeah.
So we're going to start closing it up, but we wanted to ask you favorite and least favorite chore.
Yeah, I think my least favorite was anything in that damn kitchen. Like anything, because I try to tell people, like, we weren't these people who had like box meals. We had full on meals, like full on like
dishes.
You just have, you had full. So I'm like, so the pans that you had to clean after that, like the hopper, like scrubbing that hopper with that green Brillo pad. And I'm like, can I just soak it? And they're like, no, you gotta clean it. I'm like, but if you soak it, because I just wanted to get out of the chore, right? So I think anything in that kitchen was like, and then when you got kitchen as a chore, as a punishment, I was like, everybody eating sandwiches tonight because I ain't doing all these damn dishes. Like
cereal and toast.
Listen, so I think the hopper too, and like that hopper when you had to get the food out the drain. So that was my least favorite. I think my favorite was probably, I didn't mind, like, I don't know, when y'all were in school, we had like we had like laundry, but you had like 3 people on it. I didn't mind the laundry part. I didn't really mind that, like, putting people's clothes in the folder. And I still don't mind laundry to this day, but like putting clothes in the bins and all that stuff, I didn't mind that so much because I felt like that was clean because the clothes were clean and like I just folded them, I just chilled. So that was probably my favorite, was like laundry. I also like vacuuming too because I used to vacuum with the lines. That was fun with the lines.
That's still my thing.
Yeah, everybody talks
I also
about.
didn't like dusting. No dusting because you know, Milt Hershey was like, if you ain't move a pencil to dust, like you gotta do it all over again.
Got it.
Yeah. Damn, it's just a pencil. It's a paper clip. You move it.
All right. So favorite food and least favorite food.
Oh, that's I would say favorite food. Definitely them chocolate chip cookies were on point. Like them cookies, any of the cookies we got in the tin. Yeah. On point. And my room in immediate division was by the pantry. So I used to just go in there and be like, and Miss Mladenov was like, we used to have, I'm like, I don't know what happened. Like, I don't know. I was asleep in my room like you told me to be. So
crumbs all over you.
Exactly.
Right, exactly, Jessica. Like, I got cookies up. That's just my drool. That's just my drool. So I think my least favorite food that I can remember, I wasn't a meat person. I think the meat used to be suspect sometimes, like the ham and like the pork. And I didn't really eat ham and pork. But I think that the smell of it just was, I was always like, ooh, like I just didn't like it. We used to get some good Sunday roast though. We used to get good Sunday roast, I feel like. But and the mashed potatoes, people talk about that like they love the mashed potatoes. I'm like, y'all.
The powdered potatoes.
Right. Right. And so the potatoes too, I wasn't really mind.
As many potatoes that we done picked and we had instant ones.
Right. Right. Exactly.
Bring it.
And I remember the first time we got to make real potatoes and I was like, this is what they taste like? Like, like I'm enjoying my bounty. Like this is what I'm talking about. Like on my food to my labor. So yeah.
So Deesh, if you could say anything to, like you were saying, to some of the kids that are there now, and get a point across or get something across to them, what would you say to them?
Wow, I think that I remember when this happened in our intermediate division, house parents brought the older girls back, and I was like, they just wasting my time talking about this, that, and the other in the world. Mm-hmm. But I would say honestly to them is you know, things are hard and things are always going to be hard, but hold on to the community that is Milt Hershey, not just for the memories, but also like just for your own personal, like they are people who understand your journey. They understand what you've been through at the Milt. There's even people who went to other boarding schools. I still can't relate. Like, I can't relate. Like, you know, they have their own, like Scotland has their own crew and like we have our, and I feel like you got to hold on to that because you could talk to me, like we're talking to each other now. Like you talk to, like you could pick up right where you left off. And, and I feel like when people say like you could always go home, I would tell them that you can always go home. And what that means is like not physically to Hershey, but like I can always call Jackie if I need something. I can call Warner if I need something. You know what I'm saying? Like I can call y'all and not be embarrassed, not feel like, you know, if I called you and be like, you know, Jackie, like I'm about to buy this house, but I ain't got no money. Like my credit's messed up. Like I already done told you. You know what I mean? So I feel like what I would tell them is to hold on to each other. That is your family. And and you don't realize it now, but you're going to realize that as you grow up that there is nothing like that family. Like there is nothing. Even your own family is not like that family. Yes. Even when you have children, it's not like, and I think that, you know, that a testament to that is how many of us have, not me, but y'all have children. And like Zoe, you know what I mean? Like Aunt Deesha, or like, you know, Angel's daughter, Aunt Deesha, like, you know, and that's all from Milt and Hershey. So I feel like I was helping to hold them and to have fun, like to enjoy it, and the pressures of your youth and like changing the world, and I got to do this and I got to do that. Just like breathe for a second, like breathe for a second and enjoy like the air, enjoy like just the life that you have there, and know that when you get out here, like them bills are waiting for you. Them bills are waiting for you. Them bills, and them creditors and them debtors are waiting for you. Don't rush it. Because, listen, if you feel like you want to rush it, you can have my electric bill anytime. And see how fast you come back to being a child.
I know that's right.
You saying, and lastly, can you tell us where we can find you if people want to donate to what you're doing in the Bronx?
Yeah.
Where they can contact you with beGirl World, all of those.
Of course. Oh, can I say one more thing about the advice? The other thing is like to remember that you're as smart as every other kid. So I think that being in the Milt sometimes, especially in the town of Hershey, you felt not as smart or not as privileged as everybody else. But just to know that when you get out in the world past Milt and Hershey, you're all the same. Ain't nobody checking for like you was Hershey, you was Milt and Hershey. So I think students also remember they're smart. They're just as smart as everybody else and just as capable. But you could find me everywhere. I'm all over the webs. So DeeshaDyer.com is my website. That's forever in changing motion. But I'm also on Instagram at just DEEDYER267. I'm also on Twitter under Deesha Dyer. And then the work we're doing in the Bronx is just thebronx.org. So just TheBronx.org. And that's, you know, the Bronx.org is a community effort by people in the Bronx, led by people in the Bronx. I am in service to them. It is their community. But really to just, you know, continue revitalizing and to bouncing back from this coronavirus for them. So that's where everybody can find me. And I'm always around, you know what I mean? I'm not hard to get. So, yeah.
And that's why we love you. All right.
No,
thanks, my love. Okay. We really appreciate you.
Yes. And I hope I meet the other two. I hope I meet y'all.
Yeah.
Yeah, a Goey. I'm a Goey. And like
a Goey and Jessica.
I don't know if you knew my sister, Gina Corrado.
Yes.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Look at
your
that.
sister?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So everybody knew everybody.
I know, right?
Everybody.
All right,